So the Texas election was a poop show. It was doo-doo, hot doo-doo on a platter. Okay. There were all type of, let me do this way. I don't even want to do it this. All right. With Texas, there were all types of ways in which the Republicans of Texas tried to disenfranchise and make it more difficult to vote. I'm going to take my sip. Then we're about to deep dive because I'm giving it all. Oh, I'm going to take my sip. Actually, before we do, I need to give props to the one, the only Judge Amber Givens. Okay. Judge Amber Givens is an African-American judge who she has been presiding at least since 2014 in Dallas County as judge, and she just won the primary to become the district attorney. Child, I don't think you understand. Hold on, let me show you a picture of her. When I show you a picture of her, you'll also realize why this is such an accomplishment. Right. Look how she did her hair. She shaved her hair on the side because she presides being herself. That's what I want you to see. Beautiful girl. She's herself. She wears her hair in the ways that she feels beautiful and is. But this is Judge Amber Givens. I am so excited for her. Me and her, we talked in 2017 where she was like, ultimately, this was her goal. They tried everything. They tried to say that she had violated rules, that she allegedly, one of the things she was accused of was having one of her assistants during Zoom preside over a case and make an important ruling while she was on vacation, basically pretend to be her. That is just the dumbest ish I've ever heard, but what have you. Anyway, Amber Givens she won the primary, and in a county like Dallas, even with the redistricting, basically the voting is so strongly swayed Democrat that effectively she's going to be the next DA. I mean, something could always change, but effectively she won the primary. So I want to be clear. She hasn't won DA. She won the primary that sets the DA. So there's still going to be the general election, and she would take office January 1 of 2027. Now, I also want to encourage, if you have a child of color that's in law school and wants to do criminal law, they need to apply for a job in Dallas County, because to work under a woman like her as DA would be such a blessing. She is a teacher. She is an educator. You gonna have the best possible criminal law, legal foundation to your career. You can't even pay for it, but she will pay you, but you can't pay for it. So, all right, let's go into Texas foolishness. Texas and their foolishness. Now, I want to play this clip for y'all, which is a clip of a woman who, it was heart-wrenching to watch. We're going to talk first about overall what happened with the Texas polls. Why were there these issues? Why were so many people? They were talking about like a third of the people being turned away, being told on election day they were at the wrong place and they could not vote. Why did this happen? And then we're going to talk about the results. All right.
Take my anger at what's happening. I am in Dallas, Texas, and I just voted. But I've never experienced what I've experienced before. I live in Capel, Texas. I'm less than a mile away from the main government building where I always been voting for everything else, including, last November. But now when I went up there, they have us all separated in different voting locations. If you're Republican or Democrat, they only gave us 2 locations, but the Republican Party can vote in a nice, fancy, pretty building with a nice, updated machines. They got me at some freaking elementary school where there's some teenagers in there and only 2 adults with some old, outdated voting machines to allow us to vote. And I had to drive 3 miles out of my way just to get here. This is ridiculous. This is not democracy. How dare you guys? Why are you allowing this to happen to this country? I can't believe I am a veteran. I have served my country. And it's ridiculous. They only have 3 voting machines in there. Only 3. So when people get off of work, they're going to be here all day. But their main locations for the Republicans that I saw, which voting locations, they have all the super nice ones. They have multiple machines to cast their ballots. So they're making us cast our ballots separately, where there's only Democratic polling locations and only Republican polling locations. And they used to have the signs of like who's a Democrat, who's Republican, and for all the things that you're voting for. They don't have none of it. This is not America. Okay, I'm so upset.
Okay. All right. There was a lot that she expressed there. And I want to cover this. I want to cover, hold on, I don't know. Hold on. I want to cover this gently. There we go. I want to cover this gently because I'm not going to make light of her concerns, but I have to correct some myths. So, because of my ADD, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question on the screen. I want you to drop, since we're live, drop any questions that you might have in the chat right now, because I'm starring them as I'm explaining what I'm explaining, and I want to be able to answer them. She's upset and she earned it. Yeah, she's not earned it, but she's validly upset, and she just feels like she has been taken advantage of. Somebody just say crying to your phone and posting it to the internet is insane. But I think she wanted to just, let people know how bad it has gotten. Now, Angel, thanks for joining. Hit that like and subscribe, guys. Angel says, my sister-in-law lives in Dallas. She called me and told me they had separate lines for Democrat and Republican. Do I know if that's true? I'm going to say yes, but it has to be. It's always been true. This is historical. Here's why. In the primary, that is the only time they have different lines. That's because in the primary, you're voting for who is going to represent your party. You're voting in the primary for who's going to represent your party in the election. So literally when I went, and remember, I am born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I currently live in Houston. So I know exactly what she's talking about. And I'm going to give you how this happened and how we got there. And also what are the solutions. So what happened is when you walk in, they ask you, so it's one polling place will have both. You're never going to go to a location that is only Dem or only Republican. So I have to clarify that. She said that's not true. You will never show up. Let's say it is a local elementary school where you vote, or a rec center. That's usually what they are. Rec center, elementary school, church. If you show up, they have to have both parties, but they ask you, are you going to be voting in the Democratic or Republican primary? You cannot vote in both, which makes sense because you're either a Dem or you're Republican, but you're not both. This is also to prevent one party from messing up the other party's primary. So for example, sometimes historically what would happen, my grandma told me, is when Trump was running, there were some Democrats that went and they voted in the Republican primary because they felt that Trump was such an idiot that if Hillary was against him, she would surely win, as an example. Okay. So they did things like that. So yes, when you go in, it's one location, but they say, which are you voting in, the Democratic primary or Republican? And then they hand you a piece of paper with a voting number on it. And then you go over to the Democrat or Republican side, and they give you a ballot because it's completely different people on each one, right? Once you get that ballot, the machines, from what I recalled, you could, they might have had machines on one side. Yeah, she might be correct. They may have had so many Dem machines versus Republican. But what you have to understand as well, right? Context matters, is that the voter turnout here was the biggest and historic Democratic voter turnout, was higher than with Beto O'Rourke in 2018. It was huge. So usually it is more equal to the Republican turnout throughout the state, especially where on the Republican side, you've got Senate, you've got governor, you've got these contested offices that have not historically been contested. So that was part of it. Yep, and it's based on what you add to your voter registration. So anybody, and also let me clarify, anybody can vote in any primary. So if your last primary you voted in was Republican, if the next primary you decide I want to vote in the Democratic, you can't. Nobody checks nothing. But the only thing you cannot do is if you vote, let's say in the Democratic primary, but then the Republicans have a runoff, right? Because that would be a Republican primary runoff, and they are for Senate, for senator. There is a runoff. You cannot now go vote in the Republican runoff for Senate. You have to stay in whatever party is. You have to stay in their voting for the rest of this voting season, meaning through the general election. Now, when general election happens, though, in November, you can go vote for whoever you want. You can do whatever. No one even knows. In a general election, no one knows who you voted for. In the primary, all they know is that you voted for candidates of whatever party. And that's simply based on the primary that you voted for. All right. The other thing about Texas is, so the biggest thing with Texas that was an issue was that there was so much confusion that I think it was the Democratic Party filed with the state of Texas and to ask that the polls be extended past 7 p.m. 7 p.m. was over. They got it extended to 9. And the law stated that if you were in line at 7, you will be able to vote all the way until 9. That was approved by a local judge for Dallas County. And there was a second county, Williamson County. Same thing happened, and it was extended to 10 p.m. To be clear, Dallas County is Democratic. Williamson County is very Republican. But then the Texas Supreme Court halted that on a technicality. The Texas Supreme Court said, we're halting this on a technicality because the person who filed this lawsuit, it was like the Democratic Party of whoever it was a Democratic Party officer who filed the lawsuit. The allegation, and I got my air quotes up, y'all, is that they did not properly. Why the fuck are these balloons? We ain't celebrating shit. Get that off my screen. Sorry, guys. I don't even know where that came from. I think it was my goddamn MacBook. Let me regroup. I'm too fucking crazy for this shit. All right. The election, it was extended until 10 p.m. There were the two counties. Oh, the technicality that the Texas Supreme Court mentioned was that they failed to notify the Texas Attorney General. In other words, whenever you're filing for what's called an injunction or emergency relief, you have to be able to show that you notified the other party. That way, if they are not in attendance at the hearing, the judge feels that under due process laws, he can still make a ruling because at least you tried. They don't have to show up, but at least they were notified. More than likely, and I haven't pulled the specific document, but more than likely, they notified someone within the Texas Attorney General's office, and the Texas Attorney General is like, oh, they didn't notify the right person. Fuck you. Fuck you. You knew what the fuck was up because you knew what was happening all goddamn day. And here's what was happening all day. All right, throughout the state of Texas, here was the law. Up until 2018, the law was as follows. I know because I had to deal with it. The law said in early voting, which is for 2 weeks prior to the election, which is always on a Tuesday, early voting, you can vote anywhere in your county. So if you want to go on your lunch break and you live somewhere other than where you work on your lunch break, you can go the nearest place, go vote. But if you wait until election day, you have to vote at your precinct. Most people don't fucking know where their precinct is because it's small. It's titty size. It's like a little bitty, well, some people have big titties. It's nipple size, tiny. This happened to me because I waited until election day when it was the Hillary and it was Hillary versus the Orange Man. And I actually didn't even know where my precinct was because I was so accustomed to voting at like my church and other places like that were super convenient. Anyway, so that was the law until 2018. In 2019, it changed. It changed throughout Texas. Here's the current law. Current law says this is determined on a county by county basis. If your county wants to allow you to do anywhere in early voting and anywhere in the county, not just your precinct on election day, they can do that, but both parties must agree. The Republicans must agree and the Democrats. In all Texas counties, both parties agreed to allow this to happen, except for Dallas and Williamson County, the two counties that had the problem. So I hope that follows. In other words, those two counties, the Republican Party said, we don't want to let it make it easier for people to vote on election day. We want them to have to figure out where their fucking precinct is. And when I tell you in one city, there could be like 124 precincts. Some precincts had nobody in there. It makes it more expensive to vote because you're having people man precincts that ain't nobody fucking going to. Okay? But the Republican Party, remember, it had to be unanimous. Republicans and Dems had to agree, and they did not. That's what created this issue. But I also want to clarify, this has been known for months. So both parties, we're going to talk about the Dem side, okay? We're going to talk about the Republican side. Both sides knew this, but most importantly, on the Democratic primary ticket, Jasmine knew this for months. Talarico knew this for months. It was a much bigger deal for Jasmine than Talarico because Dallas was her base. Dallas is where it was expected to pick up a lot of steam, ground votes, etc. Now, I had asked certain questions because I was like, for me, the numbers in the strategy of Jasmine's campaign, I wasn't understanding it as a Texan. We're going to talk about that separate. But one of the main things was I knew that in Houston, election day, I can go wherever. But I know how people roll. And in Dallas, with that significant of a change, and I hadn't gotten anything. I still get voting alerts for Dallas because I own property in Dallas. I own property in Dallas, property in Houston. I hadn't seen anything that was warning people of this, but it was well aware. So the Republican Braxton went to court to stop the count in Dallas. Oh, yeah. Yes, we're on the voter suppression. That is correct. I think you can ask for a provisional ballot. So what happened? Correct. So what happened is the Texas Supreme Court said, hey, there's a technicality. The Democrats did not properly notify the Texas Attorney General. So we are not at this point going to allow those votes to count. They will be provisional. Now, for Crockett supporters, the benefit to that is that those votes that happen after 7 but before 9, since they are provisional, they're somewhere, they're like in a stack and they could be calculated, right? The bigger problem, though, is how many people, when they were turned away, cried and just gave up, like this woman here. It sucks. It sucks tremendously. But I knew they were going to play these shenanigans, which is number one, why I voted before I left. I did my early voting. Me and my girl, Shona, Solange, because we're Beyonce and Solange. Shona, like her real name is Solange. But anyway, my girl, Shona, we literally were thinking about, that was who I was with in Barbados. We were thinking about like, okay, do we want to just get a mail-in ballot? That way we could fill that in, mail it back. I didn't trust mail-in ballots. I didn't trust nothing, but I got to lay eyes on you, Nichols. I got to lay eyes on you, and I got to see you put my ballot in the ballot box because I don't trust nothing about you criminals. You're led by a criminal, and you act with criminality, and I hate you all. So it is voter suppression. I also need to correct another myth. There's a myth that said Talarico has not denounced suppression. Not true. Not true. He has definitely denounced that. And he stated that he wanted to join, also, I won't say join, but also wanted to file a lawsuit to extend the counties. I also want to be clear, Williamson County, the second county where this happened, that was a Republican county. That was not a Democratic county. It says you can take a mail-in ballot. Thank you, to drop it off in person. So good to know. But yes, they have been playing. How is this? How is this right? The problem is with the law. We got to know the laws, right? Crockett's a lawyer, right? She knows them laws. We have to know the laws so we can fight the laws. It says, how is this right? It should be no one's business what party that you vote for. Well, oh, good question. No, but they have to know if you're going to the Democratic or Republican primary because it's a different ballot. That's all. Really, the question is, what ballot do you need? This one or this one? Now, perhaps technologically, you should be able to just walk up to the computer and hit a button, but they have to know what ballot to give you. So, but I totally understand your concern there. But so then this brings the question, people are upset. There are so many people that I have seen who have said, you know what? It is unfair that Talarico, that this white boy won. I'm not even voting. What I'm telling you is this is why Republicans will win Texas. Y'all are falling for it. You're falling for it. See, the Republican strategy was create division based on race, because the majority of the Republicans in the state of Texas are white or Latino. And division based on race, right? We've got a white candidate and we've got a black candidate. That division based on race, their expectation was if we make it severe enough, it will pervade all the way through the primary. It will get black voters to sit out. And without black voters, then they will never flip Texas blue. And y'all falling for it. Some of y'all, not all. The idiots are falling for it. I've read that James Talarico eats babies. I've read that he's really a Trumper and he's playing into, he does what Trump says. I have read a plethora of things. Very interesting. But I wanted to be, yes, I wanted to be clear on how that was. But I also, this is a summary I want to share with you. I want to share with you this summary that I felt was so well written. And this was well written by a African-American, Mr. Ernest Owens. He is an African-American male who lives in Dallas County. So many people that were not in Dallas County were trying to tell everybody else, this is what you're supposed to do and this is how it's supposed to go. Let me tell you, part of the confusion is some people very much feel Crockett, the race was stolen for her. And I am not dismissing your sentiments, but I want to give you all the facts to put it in context so you can decide how you want to feel with all the facts in one place. One of those said facts, yes, Crockett does have a lawsuit. That's right. She's the one that she has one in addition. In my understanding, hold on, I have not read it yet, is that Crockett has a lawsuit in addition to whomever, excuse me, filed to try and get the time extended. But one of the important factors that we need to is James Talarico. He entered the race. He's Harvard educated. He was a school teacher. He's a minister. He was a state rep for 7 years, the same amount of time as Barack Obama. Okay. Then we've got Crockett. She is an attorney. She's been an attorney 15 plus years now. She was a state rep for, I want to say 4 years, and then she became Congresswoman. I want to say, I think a lot of people, a lot of Democrats have been shell-shocked after the Hillary Clinton loss to Trump. And there was discussion about Crockett's electability. Some people say, oh, that means it's about her being black. No. That did, for some people, I am sure that factored into it. But with electability, part of that is who can cross over to white Christian evangelicals. Just stay with me for a second, okay? The other part is James he entered the race when it was just basically him and Colin Allred, and then Colin Allred dropped out. And Jasmine, on the last possible day to enter the race, Jasmine entered. Now, many people are like, oh, I know people who are saying she didn't, run as long. That's the same thing they used against Kamala. Well, this is different. Here's why. She had a very firm congressional seat. And it was clear, the only reason she ran for state and switched to state Senate was after the Texas Supreme Court upheld the gerrymandering that changed her seat to a purple seat. It was blue. It was blue-black. It was blue-black. That's my mom and them district. It was, by that I mean, like majority black, unless but a firm blue. There was no question that it is a black historical neighborhood. So I say that to say it was not clear. It was not until it was clear that she would have to fight in a new district that she said, I want to move over to this race. Guess what? She is a free woman of color. She can do what the hell she wants. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to be fair. Because if it's okay for her to do that, it's okay for James Talarico to also say, I don't want to run for governor. I want to run for state Senate, which is allegedly what he said. Now follow that along. There were a number of Texans. So what I am just telling you is there was a number of influencers, big name influencers outside of Texas that were pushing hard for Crockett. Real hard. And I think it gave some people a sense that like she's winning. Just because you're the loudest doesn't mean you're the winner. And I think that's where a lot of people misalign. When I kept seeing these, like Eric Benet just posted something that said he would never vote for Tarico. Bitch, you can't. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Get out of here. You're not fucking helping. Because you're trying to, when you do that, you're encouraging people not to vote. For whoever the Republican is. Because by not showing up, they win. And do I think Colin Allred should have stayed in? Do I think he could have won? No. Colin Allred, I have voted for him every time I could. He was my state rep when I lived in Dallas. Good looking boy, but he's boring. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Now there's phlegm in the back of my throat. No, Colin does really good in a seat like Congress where you just need to be like likable locally. He don't got the sauce. He ain't got this. Even when he's standing up there with Jasmine, bless his heart, he looked just as awkward as can be, Pumpkin. He looked like a nice boy. He is looking like a nice boy. But no. Her personality in Congress, to me, she didn't represent my Texas, how she used her words. Okay, that's what Lloyd said. All right, so let me read to you this summary. We're going to talk about this summary, and then we're going to talk about what's next, because I actually think there's some way better opportunities for Crockett to build her national brand in politics, influence in politics. And I need you to hear me. I need you to hear me before we end. All right. So this one that was shared. So James says, the Texas results are in. James won, Crockett lost. I knew this would happen because I grew up in Texas, but social media algorithms and paid political content creators have allowed for political stand culture to drain out any common sense. Let me explain. Oh, and let me let you know, I know for a fact there were certain paid political content creators who were receiving over $5,000 a month to stand for their candidate. 10,000 was normal. 5 to 10,000. And we're talking people that weren't even in Texas. They couldn't even vote. I know that for a fact. Okay, next, for starters, it's not just racism and sexism that led to Crockett losing. She entered the race much later than Talarico, who made major inroads on the ground with voters before she switched gears to run. People were excited about James. Also, James was like literally I would see clips of James online from last year when he entered the race. I didn't even know James was a goddamn Democrat. That's how good he is. By good, I am defining Texas good. I need you to take off your East Coast hat or your West Coast hat. We is Texas. And the way to win Texas is not. Jasmine ran an excellent campaign for Maryland. She ran a perfect or a very good campaign. Nothing's perfect for New York. She ran a great campaign for certain places like this. Okay. All right. So next she says, but with Talarico, I didn't know what party it was. I just knew when he went to the Texas Senate because they were trying to have the 10 Commandments in the classroom, but they had that fucking they had the hearing on a Sunday. He sat up there and told these people, basically, he walked them into the conclusion of, don't you think that it's better to live the 10 Commandments than simply post them? And oh, by the way, what's today? Sunday. And what is the commandment that says about Sunday? It says, don't work on the Sabbath, stupid. All right. Next, he writes, while Crockett was ensuring others drop out for her to enter, as in, I think he's implying Colin Allred, that Colin needed to drop so she can enter, Talarico was building momentum. So it is alleged that the agreement between Crockett and Colin was, Colin, I got this. You drop out, you run for my old seat. I will, and then I will run against Talarico. Hold on. Wait, I didn't even check. Yeah, Colin won his primary. That's not even a question. Okay. Then next it says Crockett ran a campaign that wasn't a good fit for a statewide Texas race. Hold on. I want to hear your thoughts. Let me finish. It's just a few slides. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Because what I've seen is a lot of Jasmine's supporters are loyal. Hey, Black women are loyal. That's just what we are. And it's not that her fans are not solely Black women. It's white women. It's all type of people. But I need you to hear this through. This person who does political analysis said a campaign wasn't a good fit for statewide Texas race. She garnered national appeal for fundraisers, but delayed on essential things like an updated campaign website that finally featured her platform until only a few weeks before the primary. Celebrity endorsements and a campaign that centered on her personal brand just wasn't going to move with Texas voters who wanted to know more about how she would transition from Congress to Senate. Furthermore, diverse Texas voters I spoke to who personally liked Crockett felt that she wasn't taking the race as seriously until after they voted early. Some felt the Kamala Harris endorsement would have changed their mind if it was earlier, but they also felt that Crockett would be fine either way. I kept hearing people suggest that Crockett should go on MS Now or CNN if this didn't work out, as in like, oh, she could be a political analyst. In terms of Talarico, some voters felt social media narratives surrounding him were manufactured in ways that felt disingenuous or misleading. I seen one that was the one that said that he called Colin Allred a mediocre Black man was totally misleading. He said he was running a mediocre campaign as a Texas voter. There was nothing inspiring about his campaign. Jasmine's campaign was inspiring for a plethora of people throughout Texas. It was inspiring as a woman, as a Black woman, as a person who's fucking sick of Trump. Her campaign was inspiring. Talarico's campaign was inspiring. But what happens is they turn Talarico into a victim when you start manufacturing ish. And it appeared as though that was a Colin Crockett combo to be like, oh, he called me a mediocre Black guy. Baby, Colin, you should have stayed out of that. That wasn't even until Colin heard himself being called that, he shouldn't have went on the internet and did that. And then it says someone at Crockett to take the high road and not engaging in online drama that centered on issues that directly did not impact Texas voters. For example, the CBS late night show interview mess with the FCC. Yo, that was Yeah, I agree with that. Because I'm like, I totally get you want to defend yourself in a situation, but she she sided with the Trump administration on that one. All right. And lastly, there was too much internal fighting within progressive and liberal voters regarding Crockett. While Talarico's more moderate and pragmatic base were consolidating behind him, Crockett's base were beginning to divide over her stances on Israel and other litmus tests that distracted from her overall platform. The very excited social media following that hyped her up would start to turn on her. So, in closing, it would be easy and lazy to say that Texas voters were not ready to elect a Black woman to the Senate, but that would be disingenuous. The truth is that progressive Democrats got to learn how to be more mature and strategic about the way certain candidates must move in certain states in order to advance a more forward agenda. Every progressive cannot be AOC and Mamdani because they don't live in New York. You'll never elect anyone like Crockett in Texas if you hold them to East Coast progressive standards. The lady is correct. I live in Dallas and voted for her. Voters know she could not compete with a white conservative. I don't know if, hey, Angie, I don't know if you're talking about for the statewide race or if you're referring to Talarico as a conservative. But I do think he's more like compared to her, more moderate for sure. Her personality in Congress to me didn't represent my Texas, how she used her words. It's about character for me. What about her slave comment concerning Latino voters? Well, I think I didn't hear it. So I can't speak on that. But I do think that overall, when you have, I'm going to leave this up. Overall, when you have the option of speaking specifically to Latino voters, when the option is someone who is more, progressive and militant versus a candidate who is religious based, Jesus, they're going to go with Jesus all the time. That is how Trump won the Latino vote that he did win, is because they lean very religious, very Catholic in those things. Lies. Okay. She was already elected once, so miss me with that. They don't want a Black woman. No. Angela, you're missing something. Black people elected her, not white ones. She has never run in a purple district. For me, the question no one has seemed to answer. Please help me in the chat. Help me in the comments. I would like to hear I have to date not heard a logical answer to this. She did not run for re-election for her seat. Her congressional seat was previously held by someone who held it for 40 years. That is a seat that when you get it, it's yours for life. However, she was redistricted, right? She did not believe she could win the seat that is now purple. It went from Black to purple. I know this. It was my community. If you don't feel like you can win a purple seat, how do you think you're going to win a state race? No one has been able to define that for me. Someone told me, and I said, it seems very similar to Kamala. And they said, well, the difference is Jasmine had more. Kamala only had 100 days. But then look back at it. Jasmine had a short amount of time because Jasmine was waiting for the election or the Supreme Court results to find out if her district would stand. Someone says Jasmine wasn't diverse to win. I think her approach did not resonate with white with basically a lot of non-Black voters. That's it. And the Democratic side. It didn't. And it wasn't simply because she was Black. It was if you give them the option of somebody who is Democratic and talks about Jesus, they like that. They like it. Not white, all people, but also People still have shell shock, and they want someone, they want to say, all right, I know who I want. Effectively, they're like, I want anybody who's not a Republican. Who do I think I can vote for that them idiots over there would be willing to vote for too? And that is where the difficulty lies, I believe, for Crockett. But here is Texas State Rep Yolanda Jones, a Black woman, Yolanda Jones, speaking on her views on the campaign for Crockett. And this is what she thought she'd do better. But then I want to conclude with how I think this is actually a win for Jasmine. I think it's a win. This is her on Don Lemon.
Happened in this race, not who should have won or any of that, but what happened as it relates to just the race in general.
So you understand that I'm in Houston, and they allege that the suppression happened in Dallas. Mm-hmm. So I've talked to people in Dallas, and they told me what happened, but I'm going to talk about what I know in Houston. And what I know in Houston, there was no voter suppression in Houston. What I know in Houston, for anybody who follows campaigns, I saw some glaring things that weren't done prior to Election Day that serious campaigns do prior to Election Day, and glaring things that are normally done in successful campaigns on Election Day that were not done. Specifically, I didn't receive one door knock from anyone on Congressman Crockett's campaign. Not one. I'm a super voter. I never miss an election. We are the people that people contact if they have any money at all to try to persuade us to vote for them, right? I didn't receive one piece of mail. Again, we normally get mail. Don't know why that didn't happen. The only time I saw Congresswoman Crockett was when I watched Beyond the Gates, which is a Black soap opera, and she would have one commercial. So that's one thing I was just trying to figure out. There's no infrastructure. There were no robodials, no calls. Black people in the political space, because there's a whole economy there, were complaining that no one was reached out to because Black media, and we know Black people. On Election Day, I worked Acres Homes, which is one of the highest voting Black polls in Houston. I worked Wheeler, one of the highest voting Black polls in Houston, on yesterday. I saw one Jasmine yard sign in a sea of signs.
All right, we're not about to pile on this lady, but pile on by the lady, I mean, we're not going to pile on Jasmine Crockett's campaign. Like, they did a really good job. Like, these are excellent numbers, but we're going to get to that. The point of Yolanda Jones's point was that she was saying that it seems as though perhaps her campaign focused maybe more so on Dallas, but not so much in Houston. I couldn't get a yard sign. I live in Houston, and I couldn't get a yard sign, as an example. When are the Democrats going to learn to win elections? Well, not this year, because what they're doing now is you've got a bunch of idiots who says, I'll vote for no one before Talarico. Great. That's playing into the Republican playbook. That's exactly what you want. What the Republicans want. I'm not at all Republican. And to say, yeah, Jasmine won local elections. So to say, like, I think they're referring to Angie. I understand, Angie, you're upset. Like, a lot of people just feel like it wasn't fair. And it says, Angie was saying, Jasmine already was elected once, so miss me with the whole electability. They just don't want a Black woman. You cannot compare someone who won the seat that Jasmine won to someone with statewide electability. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. But see, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about people from outside of the state, especially East Coast areas, that don't have a grasp of how it works in the state of Texas. It's just totally different. Those two seats, those are the Negro seats. Okay. The seat that she won, it was literally like a way to pacify and get around the true racism of the redistricting by saying, oh, we're going to keep this. We're going to keep giving the Blacks just one seat. But that is a seat that has been ours historically. It is not a seat that has required crossover. Jasmine has a phenomenal national brand. Okay. She has a national brand. And so that national brand allowed, it was Angie. My bad. She has a national brand that, it was Angela. Sorry. But if you can't write, but if you can, a white option compared to Black, they will choose. Okay. They will choose the white option, especially with Latinos. They think are white adjacent. Girl, I'm not going to disagree. A lot of them do think that they are. You know what? Plies put up a post today. He was like, wait, I thought we were on the same team, like a blacks and Latinos, but do y'all think you're white? No, but that's how come when you check the thing, like it'll ask you for race, white, non-Hispanic, white Hispanic, or non-white Hispanic. Because you can be both. But I do believe that when they come over here, absolutely, they do think that. I also think that if you could get a black, like if you had a black female who was a pastor, somebody give Jasmine a church. Put on a deacon board. Put it on a deacon board. If you have something like that, I'm being facetious, but I do think they will be more likely because of that. But hold on, I want to show you this clip. This that I thought was really well done. Now, when I saw it at first, I said, "What is this girl over here talking about? She is causing them. She is full of ish." I want you to hear this. I want you to hear it all.
And I don't just mean because he's a white dude from Texas. The dude,
because she's saying Talarico is MAGA passing. And she says, I don't mean it just because he's a white dude from Texas. Let's listen to her.
is able to use language in a way that bridges his progressive ideas to people who may not agree with him in a place where they would normally put up a wall. And he should be scaring the hell out of Donald Trump and MAGA, because this isn't just about the Texas Senate race. The way that he speaks and the way that he frames his Christian beliefs in the context of his political beliefs is the kind of thing that starts to break down Christian nationalism. He is literally Christian enough to call out the Christian nationalists as anti-Christian. There have been a lot of people who've been taught for the last several decades that the best way to have their religious beliefs fulfilled and have them carried out so that society is better is to vote for the Republican Party. But this guy is turning that on its head, because at a time when this administration is doing more and more terrible things that Christians are starting to question their support of, James Talarico offers an alternative framework for those Christians to understand politics through religion. Talarico is MAGA passing, and I don't just mean because he's a white dude from
I thought that was a really good summary, because initially I thought she was going to be on some racist foolishness. But what she said makes sense. And I think that's what I think the frustration that a lot of Black voters feel is they feel like you lean on us when you need us, but then when you don't need us, you dismiss us. And I think two things can be true. Like, okay, so Angie B says two things can be true. She was elected by her community, and no, they don't want a Black woman for state senate. Two things can be true, right? I would say it appears, based on the results, she didn't get the majority, right? And it was 46% to 53%. That's considerable. Even leaving room for the Dallas shenanigans, which for months was anticipated, right? Doesn't make it right, but was anticipated. I think she still wouldn't be able to make up that gap, the 46-53. That gap wouldn't be made up. But I think the frustration is that you say you want us to, but we don't feel that we get fair opportunities to participate completely. But we're not talking about, nobody keeps talking about the fucking elephant in the room, which is they never wanted her to run in the first place. She was not supposed to run. That she didn't quote get the consent of the party. They already had two people in the race. They had Colin and they had Talarico. She was supposed to be running for her reelection. She's only in her second term. That is super new for a congresswoman. Because of that, you can't say she wasn't supported, because you're doing something you weren't supposed to do. No way. That there was not a consensus on. There wasn't a plan for this. The truth of what happened is that if she had not been redistricted out of her seat, she wouldn't have run for Senate. Can we just agree on that basic fact? She wouldn't have done that. So you can't say, oh, she wasn't supported, when she created a whole new team. She created a whole new plan. You don't get to create a new plan and to be mad that people who had already been enacting another plan for 6 fucking months aren't now jumping over to your team. It says Black women need to reset while building up our own communities. But also, we need to be able to take constructive feedback. Her approach was perfect for the national stage. It was entertaining. It was gripping. She was telling the truth while entertaining us in these boring ass congressional hearings. But you have to be able to take constructive feedback. That's not going to get people in McAllen, Texas, Brownsville, Texas, in these border towns. It's not going to get them over. So what can we do? And we talk about it and we institute it. Here's the truth. I think the Texas Democratic Senate race is a dummy mission for whoever wants to do it. By dummy mission, whoever it is going to lose. I don't want them to. I don't wish that on nobody, but they're going to lose. What I see for Jasmine, and I don't know the lady personally, but what I see is not a dummy mission, is a congressional seat that she likes and that she's comfortable with. It's way easier to run a congressional seat. And you're not aware, Congress would be, think of like running for judge of like 2 counties or something like that. Like it's a lot easier. It's more direct. You get in that core and you have that core base. That's why the people got them seats for 40 years. Here's what I didn't understand. Why and the answer could solely be she doesn't want to, right? Because you're not going to make nobody run for nothing they don't want to. Just like how they said James Talarico was supposed to run for governor. He said, I don't want to run for governor. I don't want to run for state senate. But my thought was, if Jasmine would be open to it, running for re-election for a Texas redistrict seat, whichever one, right? Because it was something about like she was redistricted out of where she lived, whatever the one. Get one of them Dallas ones. Why not make her Speaker of the House? That's better than some old raggedy senator any goddamn way, if you ask me. Speaker of the House. Stay with me. I feel like the way she don't back down, the way she be gathering people together with facts, the way that she gets people excited about voting. Let me take this down because we really don't need to see this at this moment. The way she gets people excited, that seems like that would make her prime perfect candidate over time, right? Because right now we've got Hakeem Jeffries, and I know that there's a system for it. But Nancy Pelosi was in that bitch till she was dead. Oh, I don't know. Is she still alive? Does Jasmine Crockett not give Speaker of the House energy? She gives me Speaker of the progressive motherfucking House. And that's what we need. Speak, girl. Speak. What you want to say? Yeah. Someone says, okay, Tasha says, there is seniority. Seniority is a thing. You are right. But if you get you a good, comfortable seat, there's seniority and there's also voting, right? So you got to work within the party. There's layers to it. You don't just get to be I'm not going to pretend like you can just be a freshman congresswoman and then, oh yeah, all of a sudden you get to be a Speaker of the House. But, oh, Nancy's still alive. Well, okay. There's Nancy. But Nancy's gone. Okay, it was time for Nancy to go. We've got Hakeem Jeffries in there now. But I say that to say that is a role where she could be a leader, continue to lead within the party, be extremely effective. I would argue more effective than one little raggedy state, one little Texas senator. But it would also enable her to use her strengths to gather these motherfuckers together. That's my thought. She can't be Speaker because the GOP hasn't. You're right. I mean, the minority whip. You know what I'm talking about. The one that Hakeem Jeffries is now. My apologies. I made B's in politics. But I mean this person that speaks on behalf of the entire party in the House for your specific party. That is someone who has to be, we ain't taking no mess. For example, in the Texas state senate and so forth. Remember, they had the redistricting, and then all the senators left the state, but then they gave up, and some of them started coming back. Jasmine would have had them motherfuckers in line. They said, get your stay your ass out of Texas. Not only would she had them in line, but for the ones who were like, oh, I gotta come back, I gotta feed my dog, I gotta buy my pet food. Oh, because Texas state senators only make like $800 a month as a Texas state senator, which is, and a Texas rep, which is fucking ridiculous. On the state level, Jasmine would have been like, I'm gonna go on CNN and I'm gonna do an interview, and we're gonna get some money for your goddamn pet dog, for your chihuahua, and your kids. Okay, we're gonna get this, but don't you bring your word to Texas until we get what we need. She would have gathered them, and that's what we need. That's what we need. Can I get an amen in the chat? Can I get an amen? So I'm saying, and I do not want to dismiss. For those who are disappointed, it is understandable, and it is okay to grieve, and it is okay to kick and scream and say, I don't think that this was fair. I don't think that the party is valuing her the way that they, all of that is okay. But then now, give yourself a little bit of time. Kind of like when you break up with a nigga you ain't never been, should have been with in the first place. I'm sorry, I don't mean to use the M word. When you break up with somebody you ain't never should have been with in the first place, after you grieve, give yourself like a week. Get tested, make sure you don't have anything, and then it's time for action. So we're going to check back in a week. It's time for action. They need to give the girl a podcast. Amazon, Netflix, give her a podcast. Now, she was supposed to have one. It was a rumor that she had one coming with Stephen Colbert. But I'm going to guess that's not happening after she called him racist for having Tarico on and not her. I don't know that. Yes. Take a little time. Reset. Yes. Take a little time. Take a little time, reset. Mika says, you're right, but that's why you have to hold down the seat. It's sad. That's why they don't have terms, because you don't get speaker or pro tem without seniority, unfortunately. But she can get that seniority, baby. She can get in her sleep. But by sleep, I mean consistently. I mean, once she stays in her seat, like, to the point where I feel like her supporters are so supportive. Like once she got to that seniority level, like the way people would be tossing trash cans and throwing things in it, like this is it. Like we want to, and it allows her to have the strength and the power and be able to fundraise for the party, because that is probably also a large part of why she and others within the party are upset is don't come over here bothering me when y'all need some motherfucking money, and then don't support me when I want to win. Okay? Don't come over here when you need some money. Who does that sound like? Does it sound like one of your kids, one of your badass kids who's like, oh, mommy, I want your money. Okay, but did you do your homework? Don't call me, ask me for money if your grades ain't good. It all has to go together. My point is there has to be a plan that all makes sense. But to get to that plan, you can't just hop in a race on the final day when the party itself has not strategically worked together to come through into the unified plan. We can get there. But what has to happen is you got to ignore these ignoramuses like, goddamn, what's that man that cheated on Halle Berry, had a sex edition, Eric Benet. Eric Benet, nobody trusts anything you fucking say. You sound retarded. Sorry, you sound slow. Okay. Eric Benet is the one that went on and was like, I will never vote for Talarico. Okay. So what you're saying is you to vote Republican. That's what you're saying. Stupid. No. We have to dismiss those. We have to listen to the leaders. Jasmine is saying we got to unify. We also need to reunify so we can get her a seat she likes. I don't know what seat she wants. I don't know that she wants to do that. But what I don't want to see happen is this, and let me be very clear. What I don't want to see happen is I don't want it to be like Stacey Abrams. Hold on. This is not a dig on Stacey. Stacey has her place and her purpose within the party, etc. But it was kind of like, nobody, I can't tell you what Stacey does now. I don't know. I don't know what Miss Stacey Abrams does right now. I don't know. And so I do think, though, when I say I don't believe this is a loss for Jasmine, okay, I get tired of people who are like, everything happens for a reason. Fuck that, I wanted to win, right? Fuck it, I wanted to win. Don't tell me that shit when I just lost. Everything happens for a reason. But I do believe that there are other roles where she could have other roles in Texas Senate, because I don't believe whoever the Democratic candidate is going to win. Ain't nobody going to win Texas. Texas is a whole shit show, a poop bucket. So I'm saying, oh, good, she does have a podcast. Okay. So, oh, Lord. Jesus. We're going to talk about that next. So what I'm saying is that what can happen is she could do a podcast, she could do a show, she can do other things. But I believe that when she entered the Senate race, I don't believe the only definition for her campaign of winning was winning that seat. I believe that a large part of it was a win-win situation, in that she had already lost, air quote, her seat by being redistricted, right? And it was going to be, according to her campaign, it was one that she could not have re-won. Otherwise, if she could have re-won it, she would have ran for that seat again. You don't, as only being in your second congressional term, you don't not run for a congressional seat that is as firm as that is, to go try your hand at flipping your state of Texas. That doesn't happen. The only reason she did it is because the numbers were saying with the redistrict purple seat, she wasn't going to be able to win it, right? So given that, the point is she had nothing to lose by putting herself in the bucket for Texas senator. Nothing. Because she already had lost the congressional seat. So what she could gain is continuing to stay in the minds and the hearts of Texas voters, in the same way that it would prevent like kind of fading out the way that Stacey Abrams has. So after giving her time to like regroup and figure out what she wants to do, then it's time to just listen to her as a candidate and say, okay, well, what do you want to do next? What would you like to do next? And how can we, as your supporters, support you in whatever that goal is? Because Texas is crazy. Stacey was an attorney and still is. Jasmine is an attorney. She was a criminal, very well known. She was a known criminal attorney. She worked in Arkansas. She worked for, I believe, the DA's office in Arkansas. She actually ran for DA of Texarkana when she was young, maybe like 4 or 5 years out of law school. She wasn't playing around. So Jasmine is a criminal attorney. So of course she can practice criminal law. She's got her podcast. She's got other things. But I believe as an attorney, the best branding you can have is running for something like Senate. Baby, them commercials sell themselves. You ain't got to be standing on top of a truck talking about, oh, Jim Antler, the tough, smart lawyer. She will never have to do that. Ever. So let me know your questions below. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. There was something that someone said, about Colin Allred. Okay, I want to go back to that. And he said, Colin Allred has a runoff election in May. Okay, so to those of y'all who said Talarico should not have said Colin ran a mediocre campaign, this is what happens when you run a mediocre campaign. He did not call that man a mediocre black man. He said you ran a mediocre campaign. Colin should not be in no fucking runoff. Absolutely not. So a runoff in Texas means you did not get more than 50% of the vote. Colin has been in this game too gosh darn long to have not gotten 51% of the vote for Jasmine's former seat. You sound crazy. That sounds crazy. And that means the runoff means he didn't get more than 50%, and whoever the other Democratic candidate was did not get more than 50%. I think it wasn't Mark Beasley. I can't remember. My point is, if you can't win that seat, Colin Bukey, you wasn't going to win Texas Senate. It was It wasn't going to happen. All right. Good to see y'all. Drop your comments below. I will see you guys. It's Thursday for y'all. I'm in Bali. So it's Friday for me. But I'll see you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. Take care. And hit that like and hit that subscribe.
Is that illegal? Is that illegal? Is that illegal?